Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Rachel Charbonneau. We're trying to form a small, we're just starting a group in Sudbury called One Struggle, and it's a anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist group that would like to build a mass movement against capital because we think it's destroying the habitability of the planet, and we'd like to stop it. The first time, so in this materials I see that lots of you have gotten some, so that's good, about our group. So the first time that I saw any mention of Guy McPherson was a quote of his that had gone viral on Facebook. And that quote is, "If you think the economy is more important than the environment, try holding your breath while counting your money." And obviously that statement rang true for me, and I think it does with most people who aren't capitalists. So we ordered his books, and we reviewed his climate change summary and update several times, and intermittently tried to forget about him. It wouldn't be really responsible to, invite someone to your community if you hadn't researched them. And I know that Guy is controversial, but I like controversy, and I think there can be no meaningful agreement without disagreement. So I hope everybody can relate to that. I've had a lot of critiques of Guy. Some even accuse him of denying the consensus of climate science as vehemently as climate science deniers do. I have to say, when I came across that argument, I thought it was a fantastic argument, and I thought about it a lot. That argument reminded me a lot of how people perceive the corporate media. Liberals think the corporate media is too conservative, and conservatives think it's too liberal. So who you doubt and who you trust is a value judgment that people make based on their position and interests. And it's important to understand that. The dominant capitalist discourse in both the US and Canada constantly assert that many people doubt the climate change is happening, and that this is the scariest aspect of climate change. We're constantly told that because not enough people believe in it yet, we must be wrong, that the science must be too liberal. Guy points out in his book, Walking Away from Empire, that this phenomenon has a lot to do with class position. The wealthier you are, the more likely you are to have been spared many of the effects of climate change, and therefore will strongly doubt climate change as a threat. But what about those of us who accept the science of climate change easily, but are still plagued with doubts? Doubts about the severity of the climate change crisis. Those of us who think the scientific consensus is too conservative. Aren't there plenty of reasons to doubt the integrity of scientists? Bombs, nuclear technology, human and animal experiments, vivisection, drones, I could go on. Is any of that science for the people? No. Under capitalism, science is subordinated to capital just like everything else. There's a group of citizen scientists in Japan called SafeCast who crowdfunded to buy Geiger counters so they could monitor radiation levels in Japan because they don't trust the science that tells them levels are safe. Unsurprisingly, they regularly detect higher readings than officials give. Last month, Bronwyn Delacruz, a 10th grader from Grand Prairie, Alberta, undertook an experiment to examine the radioactivity in seafood sold in Canada because, incredibly, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is not doing that anymore. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency stopped testing imported foods for radiation in 2012. Some have argued they knew many foods would become unsafe, And what an easy solution, just not monitor them anymore. Are we allowed to know about whether our food is genetically modified? No, we're not. Whose science is that? That science is the property of capital, not the people. The IPCC asserts the worst effects of climate change will be felt later in the century, 2100. Guy says it will be sooner than that, 2030. Is this really a controversy? In geologic time, 70 years isn't very significant. But it is long enough to let the ruling class get away with destroying our climate. Even if it is 2100, we still have to stop polluting our biosphere at some point. Why procrastinate? It seems to me it's less of a scientific dilemma and more of a moral dilemma, which is a big part of Guy's work. For those of you who question the official capitalist line on climate change, we present Guy McPherson.